2, 1.
All right. Um, Hello everyone. Welcome back. I'm Journey. That's Michael. This is Everything in Between. We are engaged to be married, and this is our podcast. Last episode, we talked about a little bit about drugs and our relationship, not necessarily relationship with drugs. um, And today I think we're going to start off with talking about religion. Hot topic. Michael, I know you definitely have thoughts on religion. Do you want to talk about either, well, talk about like your thoughts on religion, what your beliefs are, if you have any, and why? Well, how'd you come to that?
Well, I think the reason we both wanted to talk about religion or whatever is because you're not supposed to. And, you know, it's the biggest question there is. Not religion per se, but what happens after you die? What's the meaning of life? Is there anything beyond, um, the stars?
Mm.
But I think growing up, I think I went to church twice, maybe. I don't. I remember being in a church building twice, but my mom wasn't very religious, or at least she didn't try to teach us anything. I think she's kind of
Mm.
religious or whatever, but doesn't really. I don't know. But I just. I think the first time really that I like, I would look up in the moon and stars and wonder and hope that something was looking after me or whatever, the Lion King, there's something, going on. But I think the first time I had any real thought on it was I went to an art school, and like almost everyone there was gay or gothic or a hippie or just all the weird people. Like they're, and not to say that gay people are weird, or just there was just no normal people. It was just all art kids, and everybody hugged each other. Everybody loved each other. Guys would hold each other, like, I would hold my best friend's hand, who's a guy, and there would just be no thought. And um, I I don't know. I knew gay people my whole life and loved them, and I think when I don't know. Yeah, I can't remember the day I heard about um, you know, as far as Christianity being gay is a sin and you're supposed to burn in hell forever. Um, that just didn't seem too right to me. Um, so, you think of an all powerful, all knowing being who's uh, leans towards or should be that of what is good, and it would take a very long, I don't know what even you want to call it, brainwash, conversation, manipulation. I don't know, but it would take a very long time to convince me that just because someone's gay, they should go to hell forever. I don't even, if there's a God out there that thinks that, there must be some weird time dimensional, I don't even know, that I'm missing that equates to that, because that just can't make sense to me. Um, and that alone, um, as a kid growing up, would have been my number one deterrent from that religion. And I've never read any religious books. I know that there are thousands of religions out there, and that if in most of them, as far as I know, if you're not a part of the one, then you're wrong, and you're probably going to be punished in the end. um, and for someone to be born at a different place at a different time, like let's say you're a Christian and you think, you got to follow the Bible, and as long as you accept Jesus as your savior and ask for forgiveness, you could uh, murder a bunch of people, and at the end of the day, if you ask for forgiveness, you're good. You're gonna go to heaven. But let's say that you live in another place, like you're born at a different time, different place, but you're a good person. You do all the right things. You try to help people as much as you possibly can. You don't steal or cheat or do any of the weird things. And let's say, for argument's sake, you're also straight. Like you follow everything completely to a T, and you still go to hell because you never ever heard of the word Jesus. You never saw the Bible. You never got to accept him as Jesus Christ. And I don't know all the intricate little details of all the many religions out there, but it's just weird to me to think that if someone was born without certain information, even if they were a good person, that they should be punished forever. That just doesn't make any sense to me. I also know that people lie. I also know that, 100 years ago, we weren't thinking about computers or iPhones or technology. The idea of being able to see someone in a screen and them be on the other side of the earth, or maybe they're even, Skyping from the space station. Like the idea that we can see and talk to each other from very far away with these devices was just completely unheard of. My point in saying all this is that although sometimes we dip downward into stupidity, and I think there's some of that in today's society to where a lot of things are being handed, we don't really know how our phones work, or how, why there's food in the grocery store. We don't know all the intricate details of like how life really is just perfect for all of us. So I think that kind of dumbs us down. But there are people here that do know how that stuff works. So what I'm saying is if you go back in time, you kind of get stupider and stupider and stupider, and there's probably a lost knowledge of how to hunt and gather that we don't know, and maybe they're a little wiser in that department. Maybe they looked at the stars a little more than we do because we're a little distracted. But I do feel overall the fact that I can Google almost any question that I have and have the information within a second, that it's safe to say that today we are more intelligent as a whole, or at least a part of us are, than ever before, and that continues over and over. We're always going to get smarter and have more information and be able to prove and disprove things. Point to saying any of this is the mistrust, because if you go back in time long ago when all these religions were started, the Bible, whatever, I'm assuming that people were not as intelligent as they are today, and there wasn't a real way to fact check, or I would also say that people were probably a little more gullible, and that freedom as far as expression and just being able to talk freely. I'm imagining that there were vast parts of Earth that if you said the wrong thing, you were probably just going to get stoned to death. So it's potentially these people that were in power, that had their religious beliefs, had a lot of control of whether or not you could potentially go against that. So I think there was a lot of control. But as far as like them being able to question, with real arguments, that was probably suppressed as far as like threats, but also the limited information, and just people were a little dumber. It's not that they're whatever less, but they just didn't have access to as much information as we do now. But for me to believe that, because I've never read the Bible, there's a lot of belief right there. I have to believe a friend or a priest or whatever who read the Bible. I have to believe him in all of his word, and his belief comes from reading a book that was, I believe, translated from a different language over a lot of period of time. And I'm not an expert on any of this, but I think I'm in a good territory of truth. Um, and I believe that these were written by people who never knew Jesus or any of his followers, maybe 100, 300, if not just 100 years after his death and after all those people's deaths. So this is just story after story after story, passed on, passed on, passed on, passed on. And there is a lot of similarities between religions having resurrections and multiple, walking on water. These are things that are repeated through different religions and different stories of that time. So who's to say what is true and what's not? And just there, I have a lot of skepticism. Like, I know that this pen is here. I can see it. It like, if someone came to me with a good argument, I think I said in the last podcast that the moon is fake and we're just living in a virtual reality, I would listen to them. I would give them time of day. If they could prove it to me, awesome. Like, I'm completely open-minded. If God's real, have that conversation with me. Give me that proof, whatever. But, like, I'm not against it. Like, it's a good feeling to have. Like, I think about, if I were to lose someone I love, like my mom or whatever, I'd be devastated. My heart would break. I don't know how I could survive that. People do survive that. But I would want to believe with all my being, and that my heart, my feelings might overcome my mind in that moment, and I would, with all my being, want to believe that I'm going to see her again. And that might overtake my logical brain as far as religious thoughts. And I think some parts of that may be true to what I actually believe. But there's just a lot of gaps as far as trusting humans and just, so what I actually believe is I don't think any human knows what the truth is, the creation of life, the rules of the world. I don't think there's any human that knows that for certainty. There may be people who have it right, but I don't think they have any proof or knowledge. There's no I don't believe there's a documentation or a book or whatever from any sort of God that is on Earth. Could there be some sort of weird thing where aliens came down and they left some text and that's what we're going off of this for? That's a possibility. Is there a God who left some sort of something here? Maybe. I don't know. I think if I plug my, not plug, but if I touch a socket of sound, I'm not a smart person, but I think you hear a ringing, or your body changes the way, or you can hear the electricity that's running. We are machines. Like, we're very complicated. We're the fucking coolest machines there are in the world. Like, we're fucking crazy. And we also multiply. We're like the god of machines. Like, we are. So what I really believe is in me. I believe what I believe is good. My perception of good is what is good, and that can be changed. I'm not married to my ideas, but I think the fact that I can eat food from the ground and it's good for me, the fact that I can drink the rivers and that's good for me, the fact that this earth is so perfect, as in if we were slightly moved in our space, the sun might burn us to a crisp or we might freeze to death. Our position in the universe is perfect. Everything about Earth really is perfect. Like, the bees and squirrels and bees pollinate flowers, and squirrels and birds, like drop seeds that form more trees, or just everything kind of works together in this harmonic. And there's brutality. Like if you come across a bear eating a deer that's screaming alive, you would look at that and you would maybe not like it so much, but everything feeds off itself. And when you step on a bug, and maybe some of you are like, oh god, but if it's like a mosquito, or maybe you're afraid of spiders and it's a spider, you lose that, oh god, I just murdered. But you kind of did. But everything just helps each other and balances out. The fact that the world is so damn perfect makes me believe that there has to be something more. And I don't believe that there's a guy in white robes, with the pearly gates, and is looking down at us. And I know that that is just one religion of thousands. I don't know all the many different variations of what people have thought. I don't think anyone's got it right. But what I would like to assume or think is that if there was a God, his morality would have to surpass mine. So the fact that I think I have a pretty damn good sound argument for why, if someone was born in a different place but did all the right things, they shouldn't be punished. Or if someone is gay. I had a friend of mine tell me that he thinks you can choose whether or not you're gay. And I would say to someone like that two straight men could look at the exact same girl, and one of them might find her attractive and one of them wouldn't. I don't like the taste of cheese. Most people like the taste of cheese. You can't help what you like, you just do. It's not a choice. And and if it was a choice, straight male who is religious, are you attracted to men and you're just choosing to like girls? So you really like guys, is what you're saying. Anyways, my point is there's no choosing. People are born this way, and I understand, sometimes babies just die as soon as they're born. Sometimes 6-year-olds get brain tumors. There's a lot of bad that exists within the earth. There's also a lot of good. And I know that as far as like news and stories and whatever, the bad really grabs your attention, because life is like a line, and a lot of it's boring. And when it's good, it's like soothing and it's good and you enjoy it. But when something's wrong, like there's a fire or you get stabbed, it's a jerk. It's a very noticeable difference. And I think that people focus on that. But as far as what I believe, I totally lost my thought on there. I know what I believe. I don't know where I was going with the people focus on negative things, but I believe that there has to be something. And I, as of right now, this subject, this podcast is supposed to be about religion. I know I have 10 million more things I could say on it, but I'm going to pass it to you for now and tell me what you think or believe about religion.
Yeah, so I was trying to pull up on my computer about when the Bible was pulled up or written, but I think it definitely was like hundreds of years.
Put your mic directed towards your mouth if you can.
It is.
Okay.
But it was like hundreds of years after Jesus existed. But because I wanted to start my religious journey with when I was a kid. So I grew up. Well, actually, before that, I just wanted to touch on some things you said. One was I loved the word, I don't know, purpose. I wrote down purpose, but now I can't remember what it was for. But like, I don't know. Some people do think they have a purpose, or like think they have a purpose that deals with religion. Some people feel like a higher power calling them to do things. So I think that also plays into the religious aspect of our world. But also the second one I wrote down was, why is a sin a sin? Because you were talking about, well, like, why would being gay even be a sin? Like, how is that a bad thing to like the same sex? Like, how is that a bad negative thing? Um,
I have a thought on that.
yeah.
Uh, the only reason I believe that was ever written into the Bible or a
Hmm.
law or whatever you want to call it is that men have always been in power
Hmm.
for the most part, as much as I can tell.
Hmm.
And I imagine that the people that were in power were disgusted if they saw
Hmm.
such a thing and they wanted just to rid it from the world.
Um, Also, yeah. Um, and obviously, if anyone listens to this and I'm wrong, correct me. But as far as I'm aware, the word homosexuality in the Bible, I don't know that it explicitly says homosexuality, but um, in a different language that the Bible used to be written in, and I don't want to say which language because I don't want to be super wrong. The word was originally meaning like pedophilia. So men with boys,
Well,
with young
I
boys.
think that it explicitly says if a man lies with another man. So
Yeah,
that's that.
no, I think it does. But I, I still think that it, it, it was originally meant to mean with young men. Um,
I have no idea.
because and I only say that because there were a lot of ancient civilizations that were open with sexuality, and homosexuality wasn't a big thing. It was common. Um, so I really don't think homosexuality as far as I'm aware, in a lot of places, wasn't such a big strange thing and a sin. It is a control type of thing. It's a, you know, Um, but it was just an interesting thought of like, what makes us innocent? Like,
What makes a sin is some dude
no,
wrote it
yeah,
down and said that's a
because
sin.
it's like adultery, cheating is a sin, and like cheating is a negative thing. It's not necessarily a good thing, but the only
I think that there
I
was a time where life was barbaric. And
oh
I
yeah,
think that the people in power needed to find a way to
yeah,
control people in such a way, and they also had their little opinions on
oh
how,
yeah,
like I would say don't kill, that's a good one, but
yeah,
don't be
got
gay,
there,
that's just their
yeah,
disturbed opinion at the time.
yeah.
So I think it was a mixture of
Um,
morals and just their bad opinions.
Right. The next thing I wrote down was about being wrong and punished. Like, if you don't believe in this, you're wrong. And back in ancient times, you were probably punished if you outwardly in public spoke out against the church. Um, but there are religions that aren't like that. Like I know paganism, Wiccan, um, so like naturists, magical, those types of religions are more just about self-awareness, self-respect, respect of the earth, and using what nature has given us to better our lives or to protect us or to help us, to aid us, medicinal purposes and whatnot, or even just spiritual purposes, just to help us feel better. And it just, and there's not, depending on what sect you go to, there's not necessarily a particular god. It's more of just, if you just want to picture a feminine cloud, that's your deity, that's your god. If you want to worship an established god or goddess, deity, Thor, Odin, Loki, if you want to worship them, that's your god. That's how you are depicting God in your mind. If you want to worship Aphrodite as your main goddess, go for it. There's no set thing. And you can even do, you can mix it up. You could say, I want to do Zeus from the Greek, but I also want to do Loki from Nordic. Uh, that's not a word, Nordic. Um, or Jupiter from Roman times, or Iris from, not Iris, Isis. I cannot talk. I know that's, Isis is an Egyptian goddess. Um, so you can mix and match, and it really just teaches you to appreciate nature, appreciate what's around you, appreciate yourself, and so it's just it's just an interesting thought, because it's more of just like a guideline, a lifestyle, religion if you want it to be a religion, whereas Christianity, Judaism are really focused on, there is a higher power, and live your life to please that higher power, because that higher power is in you, and it is what you need to go towards. And I don't know, it's just an interesting thing to think about, that there are religions out there that don't actively promote that you absolutely have to believe this, and if you don't, you're wrong. You know what I mean?
I mean, to me, a religion is supposed to be the answer
Mm-hmm.
to life after death, how we got here, all the big questions, and it doesn't seem like that answers any of those questions. Just be a good person, don't burn the forest, and believe whatever you want. And there's also some magic, so that just doesn't seem to be my taste in music. Um, but when you were talking about trying to, you know, take care of nature or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, it just reminded me of, I don't want to say tree huggers, but just people who, there are certain people who, respect the earth and, want to recycle and take care of the earth,
Mm-hmm.
and environmentalists, whatever. But there are people that take that to the extreme, I would say, and that they think humans are a cancer on the earth, and
Yeah.
that we just bring destruction. And I do think that there is some truth to that, because obviously we uh, cut down a lot of forests or whatever, maybe a
Mm-hmm.
little too much. We can probably find different ways to manufacture whatever we need to manufacture. But ultimately, and these same people might also not have children, because they think that there's overpopulation and we're ruining the earth. There's two things I can say to those people, and that is, one, your ideas themselves, wanting to take care of Earth. If you don't have children, and the people who don't think like you have children, well, then your ideal will just be um, gone. But the other thing I have to say to that is, I do think we're doing, too much as far as deforestation and just, kind of ruining the earth a little bit. But I do think people, just whatever, we are here to save the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one day, you know,
Mm-hmm.
millions of years from now, if we're still around, and in between that time, that there one day will be a meteor or whatever you want to call it, something will likely eventually hit Earth and end life. And I think that we are the only species or beings possible to ever see that happen before it does and stop it. So I do think people are way more important than the those certain people would give us credit for. Um, I have more about. I don't know if you had more.
Uh, well, I just wanted to touch on. I didn't go too much into how paganism, Wicca, you generally major majority believe in a higher power of some sort, and you you treat it as if, how do I, you you just you treat it with respect, and it'll respect you, kind of thing. Like, you give and it gives. You feed off each other. Um, in a way, some people, it varies because not everyone's different. It's a really open religion. I would say more to practice. But because I believe in a higher power, um, and generally most pagans do believe in some sort of higher power. It's just more of how you want to picture it. If you want to picture it as Loki, then it's Loki. Um, but just a higher power that you work in conjunction with. You don't work to serve, if that makes sense.
I think for me to join any religion,
Mm-hmm.
um, it would have to offer me the truth, and I would have
Right.
to believe that it is the truth
Mm-hmm.
with no second guessing. And I
Right.
don't think believe whatever you want equals the truth. So
No,
I couldn't, maybe there are other people
no.
people that
Yeah, I get you.
I just couldn't consider that a religion.
I get you. Uh, you said you had something. I do have more stuff.
Oh yeah, I wrote down more reasons just why I believe what
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe. Like, I was talking about how the earth is so perfect and how everything is good for us, the food out of the ground. And um, I also think, as far as, does the universe have a conscience? Can the universe think? Can the universe feel? Um, I'd be curious before I revealed what I have,
Mm-hmm.
if you could answer me those questions. Do you think the universe can think? Do you think the universe can feel?
Um, and I want to say I have no proof on my thoughts. They're purely just what I've come to conclude and believe. Okay. I don't have scientific evidence. Very hard to prove a being exists.
Before you answer, I
Yeah.
actually know the answer to this question
Right.
and can prove it. Not
Okay.
not like religious people, but
No. I don't think the universe itself has a conscience. I believe it's just full of conscious things and has consciousness. That was a weird way to say that. Conscious eye, um, in it and interacting with each other. And I believe there is some sort of ultimate, hmm, collective conscious, or just like a ultimate, a conscious something, whether it's a cloud or a being, or maybe it can manifest in different ways, some sort of thing that thrives in and around and within our universe, however big that universe may be. Uh, but yeah, so
Well, the
something.
answer is yes. We are the universe's conscious. As far as we know, there may be other um, planets with life on it, but we can think, we can feel, we are aware of the universe, and we are also a part of the universe. I believe that there parts of us are also um, bits and pieces of stardust. We are the universe's conscious, and the fact that I can think and feel and hate and love, and when I see, something horrible happen, it hurts me. And when I see something wonderful happen, I don't even know how to explain that good feeling that I get. And I can have tears of joy, and I can really just feel like there's a difference between, obviously, there's a difference, but there's a difference between thinking about something and feeling for it. It's a whole other thing. And in that realm of feeling and consciousness and thought, it just seems so impossible for it to just be randomly generated and we just got lucky. I believe that I'm agnostic. I don't know. Like, I think that there is um, truth. Like, truth is a real thing. I think there's a truth of what good is. I think there's a truth of what bad is. And the fact that, these things are real, they exist, good and bad, all these feelings, all this perfectness, that there has to be something. Not anything anybody knows, but something. And, it's really just ants walking around trying to figure out what the hell we're doing. They're never going to be able to comprehend what's going on in our minds. How did this table get here? They're never going to understand how the world around them is shaped. It's impossible, and I think that it's pretty much the same for us. Like, as smart as we think we are, we're just ants. We have no idea, and we never will. So anyone claiming to know, I just don't think so.
Yeah. Mm, I wrote down lost knowledge, um, just because I love the topic of lost knowledge, and I find it interesting, because there is well-known events that have led to a loss of knowledge. Um, Over many thousands of years, there have been many large libraries burned down in order to destroy knowledge and in order to destroy documents of, people that live there. You're never going to have records. And a lot of it's done out of a spite, but the biggest one obviously is the library at Alexandria, famous burned down library, huge library. I think it held like a third of the world's knowledge at that time. Um, and it's actually thought that we would be way more advanced in society if we had that knowledge, because we wouldn't have had to regain that. Whatever knowledge would have been lost, who knows how much of that we have regained, just through other people finding it out.
Now, is this knowledge as far as like technology, or
It's
we don't
knowledge
know?
of everything: medicinal, um, farming, technology, building,
And this was a part of a
art.
society?
Yes. So Alexandria was part of Egypt, and it was taken over by Alexander the Great. Um, and he took it over, and he was making it more of a Roman society. Um, so, but there was a large library. There was also a large lighthouse that was far advanced for its time that was destroyed, but they burned the library to keep people from, to control people, to make them lose the knowledge that they had access to so that they would be more in control of the Romans.
So who burned the library?
Um, ah,
I mean, the only reason I'm asking this is if they
no,
did
yeah.
burn the library, whoever burned the library, did they also burn all the technology? Did they also burn all the farmlands and the things that supposedly would make us? You would assume, or you would think that if we were to be higher advanced, that there would be relics or remnants of these things that are higher advanced than we are, and that would be found somewhere. But the fact that there's just a thought that there were books out there that would have put us more advanced, but there's no evidence of ever actually being advanced anywhere, makes me think that I have,
Well,
I don't
as
know,
far
that's a
as
church
like
choir.
farming techniques, it would be hard for us to see remnants of that because if society dies, no one's going to be farming anymore. It's going to waste away.
So, um, but that would just be like maybe where you plant certain things in certain uh, patterns or whatever. But what I'm
Right.
saying, as far as like tools and
Um,
like if we all died, you would think cavemen would be like, "What's this car?" You know what I mean?
well,
Like they sh-
the thing is, our stuff today is probably more durable. And like ancient Egypt has been gone for
So you
2,000
think we've
years.
far surpassed whatever advantages they had?
I think
Because we would probably have
I think
found.
there's a good chance we have regained some of the stuff, but I'm sure there's old pottery techniques that I'm not saying would advances today, right now, but would have furthered us
Quicker, right?
quicker.
Because I'm
Yes.
thinking I can 3D print
No,
whatever
no,
I
no, no, no.
want. So
Not we read it now and we're like, oh my God, how did we not think of that? I mean, maybe for some things, but it would have we would have been more advanced by now if that information wasn't destroyed. Because obviously we have tools now that they didn't have back then for excavating and researching and finding out what old stuff is, and it could have just been destroyed with people moving sittings in on old ruins.
I am a high school dropout, and I didn't pay attention in anything. So as
Yeah.
far as history goes, I don't know anything.
Um, as far as who set fire to the library, um, there's an essay, and I could read it. I don't want to read it right now. It was done by the army led by Julius Caesar.
See, what,
Um,
see what's weird for me, and I know I didn't pay attention to school. Maybe I don't know anything. Maybe there is an actual way to prove anything on Earth that happened in the past.
mhm,
I'm sort of skeptical on kind of everything.
mhm.
Um, it all there's still a leap of faith.
Oh yeah.
I have to trust this person who's telling me whatever they're
Um,
telling me, and also trust that whatever method they're using to prove that this thing took place is accurate, when I have no intention on checking their science or whatever
mhm.
method they're using to come up with these facts. So as far as anything that is more than a few hundred years ago and was written in a book, for all I know, complete
Oh,
lies. I
oh
you
yeah.
know I
I mean, I don't consider it complete lies.
But it could be.
It could be. So it's truth until proven false. It's what we have to go on. It's all we have to go on, and we have to rely on that unless we find something to prove otherwise. And that's kind of how science is. You have a current truth, the truth that you can prove or you have proof of, you have some sort of evidence. And until that's proven otherwise, that's the truth.
Well, I don't think words in a book written by a person
Right, but
could
that's all
ever
we have.
be
That's our proof.
right. Well, that's
We can't look back in
I
time.
could remove internet from the world. I can write that I was flying around and blah blah blah.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
I don't trust
I
anything.
just it it's just that it was a greatly documented event. Um,
So is religion,
okay. Well,
but
but there's no commandments here. This isn't saying believe this for this
oh, I know. But
purpose.
there's that saying that the victors write the
Oh, yeah.
histories, and
I'm not
who's to
saying this is
say?
absolutely 100% true. I'm saying this is the documentation we have, and this is what it says.
I mean, yeah. Who's to say what's true and what's not as far as history goes? Like, I
It's
have no
just,
idea.
I have nothing else to believe. So
Hmm.
it's just, without this, there's no other way to see into the past. So even if this is false,
No, it's
then good on them.
interesting
It's a great
to.
story.
Yeah, it's interesting to.
It still tells of the time, like what were people. Even if this was fake, this is a story. Great imagination. You know what I
No, yeah.
mean?
Even if half the stuff is not true, there's still like how they did things and
Yeah,
whatnot that you could learn that was probably true.
yeah.
It's just for me personally, and this might help scientists or someone. I have no idea, but knowing how someone crafted a pot however long ago does not help or affect me in any
Um,
way.
no, 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 no. And it wouldn't. The the thought of the Library of Alexandria is, had that information not been lost, we could have progressed sooner and quicker. That's just the hypothesis. Obviously, there's no way to prove that. But it is still interesting because there are techniques like I'm pretty sure, from what I'm aware of, is the Romans and how they built the Colosseum and their roads. They had a very specific mixture for their concrete, and I don't think we've been able to replicate it entirely. And it is such a durable concrete. Like those buildings have lasted for a long time and still are standing strong. And I'm sure some of our stuff that we have today will last for a while, but not everything, not wooden houses. Wooden
I'm
houses
just
would
saying on the subject
die.
of history, like I have no knowledge or
Oh,
information
yeah.
or nothing I
Oh,
could
I love
ever
history.
say on
I
any
got you.
of that.
Anyways, back to religion. We kind of went off there about lost knowledge. Gotta love it. To religion. I'll just start at my beginning of my journey.
Your journey.
My journey has a journey. Um, so I was a kid, obviously, and my parents were religious in the sense they believed in God. My dad was a Catholic. He was baptized. He um, grew up, I think he went to church. I'm sure my grandma would have made him go to church, but um, you know, they went to mass. They did all the fun Catholic stuff, and but he never pushed it on me. Neither did my mom. My mom was more just non-denominational Christian. She believed in God. She believed in being good. And so did my grandma. My grandma was huge in my on my mother's side, was huge in just being a good person. She would cook for the neighborhoods. She would babysit the kids. She was a wonderful woman, truly, and she she also believed in standing up for people that needed to be stood up for, and um, just a real idol. Um, but of course, she died when I was 6, so me talking about her like that might seem weird. I just, I have vivid memories of her. So they were just more non-denominational Christian. My father's side was Catholic all the way. Um, I always joke, and sorry if any of my family members hear this joke, that and apologies to my late great grandmother, I always say she was so Catholic, she was an alcoholic. Um, and a lot of people who have dealt with Catholicism and are now not part of Catholicism or have some sort of interaction with Catholicism laugh at that because there are a lot of Catholics who are alcoholics and who do drink, and my grandma was one of those. She was devoutly Catholic, um, and she believed you were wrong if you didn't believe in that. But she was an alcoholic, very, very bad alcoholic. But so my grandma didn't necessarily push religion. It was more of everyone just went along with grandma's thing because that's her life, that's what she knows, Catholicism. No one really questioned it, no one really pushed back. Um, she just assumed everyone was very Catholic. Um, so I went to Bible school, well, vacation Bible school. I would look into Christianity. My parents would talk about it sometimes. I would ask my dad questions about the Bible and Catholicism because I knew he knew a lot of stuff. I think he used to be a choir boy. So, um, and it just at some point didn't make sense to me. I remember reading the the story of, oh God, I can't remember his name.
A story about a guy.
A story about a guy. I think it starts with an N. He had leprosy and got cured of it by bathing in the River Jordan. And my brain, I don't know, somewhere between the ages of 7 and 12. My brain just was like, that doesn't seem right. How how could him just bathing in a river cure him of an incurable disease? I think it's incurable. At least it was back then. It was because it was a disease where you got it, people were terrified of it, they exiled you. And obviously I didn't know all that at the time, but my brain just immediately was that seems wrong and seems fake. And then I just started questioning and more questioning. You're telling me this woman had an immaculate pregnancy and had the Son of God, and this guy parted the Red Sea, and Noah built an ark in such a short time and got two of every single animal on the planet. I guarantee you, whatever country Noah was in did not have every single type of animal, nor did he readily have access um, to every two of every animal, and then keeping them in control on the boat while it's flooding. You're nuts. Sorry, you're not
I
nuts.
mean,
Believe what you
an
want, but
argument for their side
right.
would be if God's involved and there's magic involved,
I guess, yeah.
anything's possible.
Believe in God's all healing powers. You know, God really kept those animals alive. But just things didn't make sense. It just didn't add up. That one guy, and there's also a hell, and he cast Lucifer out because Lucifer was questioning. just seemed wrong. It just seemed, in my eyes, not immoral, but not your true morals. Someone else's morals. It's not your own. Um, and so high school age, I started looking into Wicca and paganism. I thought it was interesting. I thought, oh, the universe already has magic. There's no one being, there's just a magical environment. You just have to harness it in whatever way. And obviously, I don't necessarily believe that, but I believe there is some kind of universal magic that we interact with and interacts with us some way in our life. And I believe our spirits end up in this universal magical air. I don't know. That is kind of what I believe happens. Or we get reincarnated because you're telling me there's that many souls just being, I don't know. So I started questioning it. I started looking into Wicca and paganism. I didn't get too into it because I was a teenager and I wasn't going to go ask my parents to buy me witch stuff. But I told my parents, and my dad was like, it's not for everyone. I don't blame you. You got to do what makes you happy. He was always that way too, about it, whatever. You got to do what makes you happy. You can't, if you don't think this is true to you, then don't do it. Don't believe it. He just did ask that I don't tell my grandmother. Um, she has passed now, and she never did know that I did not believe in God, the one Christian God, and Jesus Christ. I mean, I'm sure Jesus Christ was a real person, but. And now I'm just kind of in this, like I said, there's a universal magic in the air and the electromagnetic fields and in the earth, Mother Earth. And I think we're either with death reincarnated or just sent off into an ether where we just kind of use our being on the universe. I don't know. Death is a weird, yeah. But that's kind of my journey and my beliefs on religion.
Do you think religion as a whole, all of them, has more good or more bad?
Um, I think it has the potential for good.
But overall,
Overall, with the state of it today,
and throughout all time, not just right now, but throughout all time, do you think it's done more good or harm?
I would say a mixture of both.
But if you had to lean,
If I had to lean, I'm just trying to think. All in all, maybe more good, only because I think it helped unite people, which allowed more ideas to happen and us to progress. Otherwise, I think we would have just been really spread out and not congregated anywhere, not shared beliefs. Because if you don't share beliefs with people um, at all, why would you start a community with them? So, like, I don't think communities would have happened as much. And I think there wouldn't have been as much sharing with information, and I don't think we would have progressed as much as we did. So, in that aspect, I think it's done more good.
I think a lot of people hate religion, and especially now, God and there's just a lot of taboo with that nowadays. But if you go back in time, obviously I'm not going to speak of any historical proof, evidence, whatever. This is just an imagination exercise. But if you go back in time to caveman, to I can't really talk, but I can maybe pick up the stick, and I want that, so I'm going to club my friend to death because he has this thing that I want. For you to go from that to this, that is a magical, gigantic stretch journey in itself. That how did we get from I want, so I take, without even communicating, it's just rah, 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 like, from that to, because I would assume for most times in the world that, brute strength was probably just the ultimate way of getting anything done. Like, those are the people who had power or who were in power. It's just who's the toughest guy in the room. But I think now we live in a world where, the guy who has the most going on is probably Jeff Bezos. And, look at his brain. Like, just look at this. He's got a big ass head. But my point is it's, the smart people. Like, you can be as strong as you want. If I create a robot that can shoot you from 1,000 miles away, what are you going to do about it? We can see, with satellites, if there's someone wanted to hear this conversation now, they absolutely could, and there's nothing we can do about it. So I think we've successfully, or for surely, moved on from brute strength. Now, if you get caught in an alley with some big dude, you might be a little fucked, but overall, as far as real power in the world today, it's just brain. And for us to get from, you could be like, imagine that you're the smart guy in the dark ages or just caveman era. You're the smart one who creates the wheel or whatever. You created the wheel, and maybe like people like you for a day, but they're probably gonna hit you in the head over with a rock the next day. It's, for most of time, it was brute strength is how you survived. And so for us to get to a place where, morals and thinking is the real power in the world, that's a giant stretch. And I don't know if I always say, but most people are not that aware or smart or awake. They're distracted, and they're easily manipulated. And so if I'm a guy in power and I have chaos, I have people who just want to rape, murder, steal, do whatever they want, savage world we live in, and I need to find a way to control them, find a way to stop the chaos. I can imagine putting in place a similar thing. Obviously, I wouldn't put the gay thing in, and there's probably a lot of other things that I would change if I would have read the thing, but it makes sense to me to create something that would unite people and just make things super passive. And like, we need to do good because if we don't, we're gonna be in hell forever. But that does bring me to like what truly is good. I don't think you could ever be good, like truly good, if you're only good because you're gonna go to hell if you're not good. I think goodness just comes from wanting to do the right thing or the kind thing with no one's looking. There is no reward. You're not gonna get punished if you don't do it. If you're living your life that way, where you're just following the steps because you kind of have to, that's not good. That's not what true good is. But I do think, obviously, there's been several wars and just chaos and murder in the name of many different religions. So there's, of course, been a lot of bad from religions, and that's it still ties to today. There are plenty of religious people that absolutely think if you're gay, you're gonna burn in hell for for all eternity, and
Yeah.
for people like that to say that it's okay, they can do whatever they want. This is just my beliefs. That's just what I think. I don't think you can friendly sit at a dinner table. Like, I don't know, if I'm gay and I'm sitting next to a Christian that absolutely believes that, it's cool, I can do whatever I want, but he's totally fine and okay with the fact that in his world, I'm gonna burn forever. I don't think I could be okay with that person. And this sort of brings me to, I'm gonna tippy toe into politics, but I'm not gonna go in at all. But it brings me to, if there's a bad idea, the answer, if me as the gay guy sitting next to Christian who is totally fine with me burning in hell, the answer is not to get up and punch him in the face. The answer is not to leave. The answer is not to block him, remove him, because if you do that, he's gonna, people don't change their mind when you say, hey, you fucking idiot, you're wrong. You're just stupid. You're just so stupid. That doesn't change people's minds. Like anger and emotions, this is not a, you have to talk to him. You have to explain, how you feel. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone.
Right.
But if you want to affect real change in the world, if you were to block the guy, or maybe a social media blocks him or whatever, he's going to enter into an echo chamber of only the people who thinks like him, and he's just going to get that thought process over and over and over again. He's never ever going to change his mind, and people like that are always going to exist in the dark. The real cure to that is to bring everything to the light, and what will be. The best way to beat a bad idea is with a better idea, and there's no escaping it. There's like, he will either, like, if you're good and true and right, he only has a few options. He can accept he's wrong and accept fault, or he can run away. Because you can only argue for so long that this guy is green before you say, hey buddy, come on, let's just take a look outside. There it is. But I do think, for the most part, religion throughout time, as far as caveman eras and dark ages where, obviously there was a lot of murder and bloodshed, and but I think for the most part, to get caveman society to this society, religion had to be. Yeah, I don't think you could have controlled we were wild animals with big brains.
Right.
But now I do believe that, the journey of savagery to getting to where we are now, living in cities, and just like thought and, inventions and whatever, this is the power now. Damn it.
You don't think religion should be a part of that? You don't religion?
No, I think that from, I don't know, 200 years ago, whatever you want to call it, from 200 years ago or 300 years ago to caveman, that was a journey in itself of like, how do we get to a place where we can actually think together for a while and not get murdered? We're sort of in that place. Not everywhere in the world, but right now we're in a place where now we need to figure out what truth is, what good is, what morals are. I think that there's a lot of people in the world that there's not that many problems out in the world. Like, if I want food, there is. But for people who live in a city in America, there's not that many problems. If I want food, I could call and get food. there's a difference between being homeless here in America, where there's potentially a homeless shelter, you bum a couple dollars during the day, you get some McDonald's, whatever, and then, starving in a third world country. Big difference.
Oh,
Any
yeah.
one of those people would want to be here. Absolutely. But what I'm saying is, I think religion took a good or a big, was more good than it was bad to bring us here, which is very important. We needed to get to a place where we can now gather our thoughts and correct all those little, like, gay people probably are not gonna burn in hell. You're wrong. Let them love and be and
Yeah.
whatever. Everyone should, as long as you're not hurting anyone physically or stealing or whatever, let everyone be free and do whatever they want to do. It doesn't affect you or matter at all. We can all concentrate in peace and love and get to the root of all truths. But we also have to not be attached, or we can't identify ourselves with our beliefs and our thoughts. You can to some extent, but you have to be willing to, like, if I get in an argument with you or anyone and I shit on your idea, I'm not shitting on you. I'm shitting on something you said or thought that you heard from someone else. I'm not shitting on you. You're not your thought. You're not your idea. You're not your belief. You're you. Just experiencing the world and learning and gathering information. And sometimes you're going to get some bad information. But you as a person, we need to learn how to communicate where you can have your thought, I can have my thought, and we can dish it out without taking it personal. Get to the
Right.
root of all, whatever the truth is. So again, I do think religion was good up until now. I think that as far as the Bible, because that's the only one I really know anything about. I know there's a lot of religions with bad things in them, as far as, like, if you don't believe this, then you should die. I know there are several out there like that. And you mentioned paganism and
Yeah.
witchcraft. What is it?
Wicca.
Wiccan. That to me don't offer what truth is. Like, this is the truth. But I think, we live in a world where everyone's sort of divided. And I think that's okay. I think not that we're divided, but we're divided because we all believe different things. We all think different things and believe it. There in America itself, I think that there are several different religions, and we're all together not believing in the same thing, but also trying to unite and be one. And that seems like it's an impossible thing. That's because it is an impossible thing, because when you take out the globe, okay, and you roll it around and you look at all these names that I don't know, I could probably name 2-3% of all the little cities that are on the earth. You know what I mean? Like, this is a complicated problem. How do we get all these different tribes and countries and cities and continents to all unite together when we all believe very different things? There's some cannibals here. There's, super religious people of different sorts everywhere. How do we all unite? And when you look at the globe and you're scrolling around and you're wondering, how do we get all these different people with different ideas to all unite as one? Really, the only thing you got to do is look up. And instead of having that globe in your hand, take that away and get like a little blue bouncy ball and just look up with it. Like, we're all on this little ball together. Like, there's infinite darkness around us. The enemy's out there. We should all be just Team Earth. Like, you got your God, you got your God, whatever. As long as we're all on board with not hurting each other, not, letting each other, as long as there's no hurt involved,
Yeah.
we're all here to protect and save the earth. And, we could live in harmony. Of course, that's impossible because, even if there was a perfect education system where there was, a really cool way to teach morals there's always going to be someone who's just not there. You can't get rid of evil, and you can't get rid of bad. But I do think that that's important as well. I think that, me and Journey watched a show last year. It was called The Good Place, and it was about heaven. And I'm not going to spoil it, but they get to true heaven, and everyone there is a zombie because everyone has everything that they want, and they've just they've exhausted their enjoyment. The enjoyment doesn't exist anymore. You have to suffer to appreciate good. You have to have bad to have good. There is no light without darkness. So there's always going to be bad people. It's impossible to save the world, as far as people. But all you can do is do your best to minimize it. But there has to be bad, and you shouldn't look as bad. Like, obviously, if there's a death in the family or something extreme, this is not so good. But something that hits you. I talked about that line of things are just normal, and if it's good, it's soothing. But when there's a stab or a jerk or something bad, it really affects you. But instead of taking that and creating more negative with it, and potentially creating more negative into the world, if you have a bad day and you go out in the world and you're mean to that guy or whatever, then he's gonna be mean to his wife, and she's gonna be whatever. You just create more bad. But if you take something that's bad and you examine it and you learn from it, and you try to talk to this guy who thinks you're gonna go to hell, and really you don't owe him anything. But if you're trying to change the world, you have to face what you perceive as evil. He might perceive you as evil, but there is a truth. And if you talk long enough with the right person, obviously there's some people that are just not worth your time. But don't assume that before you go through that process. I used to hear people talk, and in the moment they said they're religious or whatever, I'd be like, well, you're an idiot. I'm tuning you out. Talk to that person, because it is very possible for you to change their mind, at least on you. At least have them think that, hey, maybe you probably shouldn't go to hell. You're a nice guy. I almost think exactly like you as far as morally. And if my God wants to burn you forever, well, maybe I don't like my God. Just have those conversations with people. I think when I think about my death, or my mom's death, I want to believe that I will see her again. I want to believe that if I died, I would want you to believe that I'm watching over you, and that I don't necessarily need my mom to watch over me, but I'd want to believe that somehow, some way, we would connect again. I don't know how, I don't know in what sort of way, but just that it's not gone. And this pulls back to fact and knowledge and thoughts and emotion, and I feel strong. I love the people I love, and for me to lose that forever, that's a hell in itself, and that's a hell that I don't want to believe in. I don't know the answers, but I'd like to believe that whatever good is, whatever real good is, whatever real truth is, we get there. That is what is true. That is what is good. I want to believe that I'd see my mom again. And I don't think I need to necessarily read a Bible or any other sort of religion to get there. I think that if there is a God and God is good, then he would understand. He would be understanding. I have this dumb rule. First of all, I don't think if there was a God, he would have these dumb rules. I think he would be understanding and forgiving. Before I continue off on another spiel, I don't know if you had anything
what else you got? Like, what were you gonna spiel about?
Well, at the end of any of my arguments on this subject, I always say the same thing. I think that everyone believes whatever they believe. I think that if you believe with all your being more than, your willingness to accept fault, like, I think that man, the words are just not coming to me. Any good brained human, right? Anyone with a good brain,
Mm-hmm.
has to be humble, has to accept that sometimes it is possible for them to be wrong. I think the moment you enter a dimension where you are right and there is nothing that could ever change your mind, that's dangerous. And that's when religion becomes dangerous. Because I believe if I had a conversation with, the guy who wants gay people to burn in hell, and he is humble, he's a humble person that could potentially accept fault, he's just never been challenged that way yet,
Yeah.
that he could come out of that thought process. But when you entered a dimension that you cannot be changed, and there's something also kind of fucked up in whatever religion you're believing in, like I need to kill whoever doesn't believe, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, that's when religion is bad. I think
Mm-hmm.
I wish there was a religion where there wasn't, parts of it that were extremely bad, or, because that would be awesome. Not necessarily that I would believe in it, but I wouldn't be against it. You know what I mean? I'm not against Christianity or any of the other religions. I don't believe that they are who they say they are. Like, I
Yeah.
think if God wrote down a list, like, if I'm a Christian, I believe that God wrote down this list. I don't think God can be wrong. So for you to be a Christian, but also, like, there are gay Christians out there.
Yeah.
For you to be a Christian and not believe anything, like just one thing in the Bible,
Yeah.
I personally don't consider you a Christian. I think that you're just, you're not thinking hard enough yet. But I think that if there's something in the Bible that you don't agree with, don't believe in, whatever, God can't be wrong. He's God. Like, there's no. That's what it is. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that there's. I think, again, I think you can believe whatever you want. When you know, that's a problem.
Right.
So I am agnostic.
Yeah.
I believe that there has to be something because the world is so terrific, and how I can feel and think and love.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if you think you know, then you're dangerous. I don't think anybody knows.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my argument really is just it's impossible to know,
Right.
which means everyone is agnostic.
Um.
You could be two things.
Oh yeah. Um. No. Yeah. In a technical sense, everyone's agnostic. Um. The only thing I can say is that I'm not sure if if there even is one ultimate truth in the sense of what to believe. Um, I'm I'm sure there's an ultimate truth. There is an answer to everything somewhere. We obviously just don't have it yet. So until we have that, I don't care what people believe. Like, believe whatever you want to believe because that's right for you. That's your truth. That's your life. That's what feels natural and right to you. Like, I've never felt Christianity or Catholicism felt right for me. It was only once I looked into paganism that I felt understood, or like not an epiphany, but a sense of this makes sense. This, and it's not just paganism, because I haven't found what, if any, religion exists that fully speaks to my beliefs. So I don't consider myself a full pagan or Wiccan or anything. I just consider myself a naturist, a naturalist, agnostic, I guess. But in a nature way, I believe the things around us have their own powers and energies in some sort of cosmic way. I don't know. Some sort of universal magic. That's why we have medicine, and people used to use herbs as medicine before chemicals and stuff. I mean, there's nothing against chemicals. I take drugs, prescription drugs, so go chemicals. Because our brain has chemicals. Our brain is made of chemicals. We need, um, and I don't mean chemicals as in the bleach under your sink, obviously. But it's just the sense of, in terms of what to believe until we have an ultimate truth, whatever that may be, whether that be there's literally nothing out there and there's no cosmic magical being, whatever you want to call it. I think until then, believe what you want to believe and whatever feels right to you. If you feel confident and good and about not knowing and just not having any sort of belief because you don't know, because you don't want to assume, you don't want to believe something that you can't fully believe, then that's you. That's what feels right. If you are an atheist and you think there's nothing, then you think there's nothing. I mean, you think you know, but if you can at least admit, well, maybe it's not, but it's what feels right, then I see no problem in any religion. But yeah, that's just adding on to you saying if you know, then you're kind of almost too far gone. You can't know if it's a belief, if it's a belief system that you're reading out of a book that is people telling you what to believe. I'm not gonna have someone tell me what to believe. I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? I'm gonna believe what feels right to me. I'm not gonna believe this because it's right, like a lot of religions are. It's like this is some beliefs you can believe in. Do it if you want. You know what I mean?
I think that, yeah, I don't care what anyone believes, as long as whatever you believe doesn't cause harm. And there's a lot of fake Christians out there. There's a lot of fake, and I'm totally cool with that. If you don't like the gay parts of your Bible and you want to believe everything else, do whatever the hell you want. I just don't personally think that in that world God could be wrong. So therefore, I just think you're sort of
Right.
wasting your time. And as far as an atheist, there's no harm in not believing in
Yeah.
nothing. But the idea of absolution is the same in religion as it is atheism.
Right.
There is God, there is no God. That's
Yeah.
why I don't think it's possible to know, but
Yeah.
there is also the argument of religion is a belief. And I definitely do believe that there is. So I would be agnostic as far as I don't know if I'm correct, which is good because that means I'm not too far gone in whatever I'm thinking. But I believe that there has to be some sort of understanding in the universe and an ultimate truth of what good and evil is, and that there is just basic laws and rules for the way the world works, and that ultimately if you go down the road honestly, with truth, that you get to good. And yeah,
I mean, with good and evil, I don't know that I necessarily believe there's absolute right, absolute bad. I think there's things that are good but can also be a little bad. Maybe they have a consequence. Maybe you do something good in a bad way. Um, and to reference back to the good place, I don't want to spoil anything as much as I can. So sorry if this spoils anyone. Um, there is a point in the show where they find out the sorting system is wrong because doesn't take into account
Situations.
situations. It doesn't take into account how complex our world has become. It's not just good, bad. It's, well, maybe this is a good thing, but maybe it'll affect someone in a negative way. Like the 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 example that is stuck in my head is I read this story of this guy who was arrested, and he was arrested for murdering people. But the people he murdered were child offenders. I don't want to say the R word. They were child R worders. They were sex offenders. So he was killing who we would consider bad people, who we would consider not good for society. So, in a way, he was trying to protect future victims of those offenders. And I don't necessarily see those murders as a bad thing. Murdering in our conscious mind is not a good thing. However, murdering to avenge or to protect, it's the, do I kill, do I save the 5 people or do I save the one person? Do I kill the one person or do I kill the 5 people? You know, that question of, you're on a track and you're going down and there's 5 people, but you can switch your lane and just kill one person. Do you save the more people or do you save the one person? So that's kind of like a, that's a moral question. I think it's because what if those 5 people are all murderers? It's a, do I save the innocent person or do I save the 5 criminals who have hurt people and murdered people? You know what I mean?
I th-
It's a situational.
I think that there absolutely is a truth as far as what is good and what is bad in the universe. But I think if I was just imagining an ant drowning in the pool, if I take a leaf and I pull the ant out of the pool and I place him back on the surface, I believe I just did a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think the ant knows or can comprehend at all that I just did a good thing or not. He's just now not swimming or drowning or whatever. He's not. So I think that as far as what really is true good and evil and, you know, correct or whatever, just the answer to all the big questions, like where did we come from, whatever, all the questions that you can't answer yourself, you're that ant.
You're guessing.
Compared to the universe, like, you're never gonna know. Like, there are tons of complicated problems that humans will never be perfect. That's the problem. And I do think Earth itself, like, it's random and there's lots of animals. There's lots of different types of animals, but it just, and there's a lot of chaos and there's good and bad. But I think the balance of both of those things, darkness and light and You know, you
Mhm.
can't appreciate good without the bad. Here on Earth, how everything sort of just works together, and we're so lucky to even just exist.
Mhm.
Imperfection working perfectly
Mhm.
is kind of perfect itself. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I think the Earth is kind of perfect, but it's also kind of not perfect. Um, I
Right.
would say it's more closer to perfect than it is not. Like, just the fact that if we were just a little
Yeah.
further, we'd
Me just
burn or
saying that
freeze.
I just don't believe just the it's just the absolute truth thing. I just
Well, there's an absolute truth that geographically in the universe we are located
Oh yeah,
where we
yeah,
are
yeah, yeah, yeah.
located. That's the sort
That
of truth that I mean. That there
okay,
is,
okay,
like, outside of the furthest
okay.
universe or star we can see, there is actually something there.
Mhm.
Um, and I do believe that the universe is aware of that.
Mhm.
We're not, because we're
Right.
ants, but I think that there is a higher conscious
Mhm.
than
Yeah.
us. Whether
Yeah.
that, like, definitely there's probably some aliens somewhere, but just the universe itself, besides us being able to think and feel, has its own, it's sort
Yeah.
of self aware. And I do think that there has to be some sort of magical component to existence itself because, how there's the Big Bang Theory, but what happened before that? What happened before that? What happened?
Mhm.
The fact that we exist is magical on its own.
Right.
So I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that there's some sort of other magical component that we could never comprehend
Yeah.
at all. Um, but I was sitting there thinking, and I would hope that someone not religious or someone religious as well would listen to something like this, and I'm imagining people have their quick dismisses. I talked earlier about if I heard, a religious person talk, I would be like, well, you're an idiot, you're religious, whatever. But then that the real answer to that is to have that conversation and to really get in depth. And I would just want to say to any sort of religious person actually listening to something like this, um, that when I defend a gay friend or the fact that I don't want someone gay to burn in hell for all eternity, in this religious person's mind who's listening to this, they
Mhm.
probably have some sort of explanation or rereading or reinterpretation
Mhm.
of why that is in the Bible, and it
Mhm.
makes sense to them. But I just
Yeah.
want them to know, because I think that in society today, on
Mhm.
both sides of every sort of coin you want to think of, there's a quick dismissal of the other side, and there's an emotional response of like, oh, you think this way, and I'm going to now retreat into myself and my emotions, and I'm not going to talk to you because you go against what I'm thinking.
Mhm.
um, for the guy or girl listening who's really religious and thinks that I'm having an emotional response defending my gay friend or
Mhm.
whatever, just so you're aware, I would love to have a conversation with you about anything, and there
Mhm.
is no emotion in my body. I don't have it. Um,
You have emotions.
well, it just.
um, I just want to add on with the whole good, evil, religion. Just because I'm sure there are a lot of people who would argue, and we also kind of agreed that religion overall ended up working to get us where we are today as a society. Um, but in my eyes, like you said, you're just being good. You're just doing good things um, for another being. It's not for yourself. It's not because you're a good person. It's, oh, I'm going to be good and I'm going to do it in the name of someone else. I am going to do all these good things and say, yeah, I'm living my life for the Lord. Um, because I think as a society, we should encourage raising your children to just be good people. We should, because that's how my parents raised me, and I will forever defend how they raised me. Because, and I don't want to sound, and I kind of sounded like I was full of myself last episode, I felt, but, and I don't want to sound cocky, but my parents instilled in me a sense of good and a sense to do good. And I also just felt that on my own, a sense to be good and do good things and do nice things for no other reason than to help a fellow human out. But they never brought up religion with that aspect. They didn't say, yeah, do this because you're supposed to be good for the Lord. They didn't say don't sin. They just didn't want me to do harmful things to others. They didn't. And I, in turn, felt that internally. I loved helping people. I, as a kid, loved helping my teacher carry something or like, and it was so sexist, but there would always sexist in a way of like societal ingrained sexism when a teacher would be like, can I get 3 strong boys to help me carry these chairs?
I'm just gonna say that typically a man
Yeah.
is stronger than a woman. That's not
Um,
sexist.
no, 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 no. Not that, but as in, not just, can I get 3 people who want to help and think they can? It was always, can I get 3 young boys? And I instinctively would also raise my hand because I wanted to help. And I just, it made no sense to me as why did you have to be a boy? I can carry that chair too. I'm not some weak, frail person who can't carry a chair. These third grade boys are, they're not necessarily stronger because they're third graders. They're not working out. They're getting the same amount of exercise as I am.
I think in society, you know, at least the past, we had roles.
Oh yeah.
So I think that that was an encouragement of the strong man
No.
role, and obviously things are
No, yeah, that's why I
changing.
said ingrained sexism, just because I don't necessarily blame the teachers. It's a societal thing where you ask the men to do the strong men things, and you.
I have a question for you. You talked about being raised morally good,
Yeah.
but you also said that you came up with that, or you
Yeah.
felt that on your own as well,
Yeah.
like you wanted to help people. Where do you think that instinct of good came from within you? The you said you were raised, but you also said there
Yeah.
was a separate part that you just knew.
I mean, I think it came from being raised that way.
Do
and I
you think if you were just parents not in the picture, I feel like it's
I don't know.
separate. Is it
I don't
not?
know. The only reason I say I don't know is because I do think
Do you think you would be evil if you had different parents?
I don't think I would be evil.
Do you think you would still be good?
I think I wouldn't care as much. I really don't think I would be as caring. I think I would still have some sort of it, but I don't think I would be as caring as I am if it weren't for my parents
Do you think it's
and my grandmother.
Do you think it's possible that you were raised by, I don't know, robots who didn't offer you any sort of morals, that you would develop what you think is good on your own?
I think,
Like you see a
yeah.
bunny get run over by a car and you don't like that. Do you think you could develop that on your own?
I think I could develop
Or you have to be taught to be good?
to some level of it. I think I naturally I could develop some of it. I truly don't think it is entirely just my being. I do think because you could argue there's the whole nature versus nurture. I think it's a mixture. I think it's a mixture of some nature, some
What
genetics, some soul, whatever you want to call it, and then there's also the nurture.
what
There's
I'm
what we're taught.
what I'm trying to say is, can good manifest
Yeah.
on its own from you without any influence?
Well, here's the thing:
Do you,
is I think yes.
okay, so if that's true,
Uh-huh.
where does that come from in that world where it manifests on its own inside of you?
I don't know.
That's what I believe.
Yeah, I know.
That's the true
No,
good
I know, I
in
know, I
the
know, I know.
universe that I believe.
I had a spiel I was gonna go on. Um, it was just more of me saying, I just, I just believe we should raise our children to be good and not out of religion. Because my parents did raise me, and they just raised me to defend people who needed to be defended, to stand up to people who needed to be stood up to, and to help fellow men. I the first time I saw a homeless person, a true homeless person, was right before I left Nebraska. Well, true homeless person in my town. I'm sure I'd seen them in Omaha, but they didn't necessarily look homeless. Maybe they were walking around. So I'm sure I'd seen them. I just never realized or noticed. But I think it was me and my mom were leaving Walmart one day in my hometown. And on the corner of the main road was a homeless person. They were holding up a sign asking for money. And I made my mom pull up to them and I gave them money. I gave them whatever cash I had on me. I think we gave them a $20 bill. And I just, I haven't always been good per se. I've done devilish things, kid, angsty, rebellious things, I'm sure. I snuck out of with my friend at her house once. Did not like the feeling of it. I was like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. I'm gonna get caught. Someone's gonna see me. They're gonna catch me.
So there's more good in you than bad.
I would say so. But I do have negative,
I'm just saying, like,
bad thoughts.
obviously you're focused on your parents teaching you good. I'm just saying, like, where does good come from? The idea of good. I don't.
No,
I,
yeah.
obviously, you can be taught what some human thinks
Yeah.
good is, but I do think there's a truth to
Oh,
a truth of what good is.
well,
and
yeah,
when
if
it
you just look at
manifests inside you, obviously some people are twisted and can be completely wrong, but I don't think you wanting to help a homeless person is a wrong thing to do.
I mean, if you just look at the flip side of it, there's people who maybe were raised by decent people and are bad.
Yeah,
Do
that's why I
bad
think parents
things.
are irrelevant. Like, obviously they help a lot, but it's not a final determination.
Well, it's also you could be a good person and a bad parent, not a bad parent, but a bad teacher, perhaps. Maybe you just don't think to teach certain things because you just assume your kid is gonna,
Well, I think that
you
a
know.
kid can grow up in a world where everything is dark around them and they could still rebel and be good. I think goodness just comes from
Yeah,
whatever it
but there
is
is a
that I
thing
don't
of
understand.
there is the thing of you know your environment does have an impact. If you grow up in a bad place, it's probably going to be a lot of bad people. But there are still probably good people. There are, you know, but I feel like we live in a really gray world, as in there's not really any, or hardly any, if any, truly good to the core, all around 100% good. I can't buy it. Everyone has a bad, negative, evil thought at least once in their life, or has lied once, whether it was about taking 2 pennies or something, or dropping something. Someone does something in their life. No one is perfect. No one is purely good. Um, but maybe they're purely good in the sense of how bad and negative our society can be.
I don't think humans can achieve perfection, but I think the universe is aware of what perfection is. Has darkness and lights. Most planets don't have life on them, but I think that it's aware of, the good parts of the universe, like
Mm-hmm.
places like Earth, at least for the most part. I think perfection and goodness exists in the universe, is aware of it. Um, but we're probably getting a little far into this situation.
Getting
But
real
the
deep.
last thing I would want to say, and I'll pass it
Mm-hmm.
on to you, is just that I think, again, religion has done a lot of good for the most part. Um, getting from chaos, caveman
Mm-hmm.
society, to where we are now, where we can correct all these um,
Mm-hmm.
things that it got wrong. But I do think a replacement would be nice, at least as far as for non-believers or people who want
Right.
a way out of, not believing fully what they were
Mm-hmm.
raised with. I think that, at least for me,
Mm-hmm.
just believing in goodness and truth, and if there is such a place, a God, a heaven, whatever it is, that he would be understanding, and that if you got your morals in order, and some people are not going to have their morals in order, and this is not going to go good for them, but
Right.
um as long as you try to do the best you can and help as many people as you can, and just live for love and kindness, and
Yeah.
if there is such a place, you would go to it. But even if you don't believe in any of that, we're all just on this little tiny rock together,
Mm-hmm.
and we only get to live one time, as far as we
Mm-hmm.
know. The best thing you could ever do is just to be as nice and as loving as you possibly can, and realize that time is a, I don't even know what to call it. It's a
Yeah.
but our time, is now, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone, we're all here together. Like, if you died and could look back on the billions or gazillions of years that were the existence of this universe,
Mm-hmm.
we're all neighbors. We're all very closely related, as far as,
Mm-hmm.
like, the beginning of time and the end of time, whatever beings were around.
Mm-hmm.
We're all, we could be all just one family on Earth.
Yeah.
And if you think about life that way, even if you're not religious, just be kind to one another, and don't be a piece of shit.
um, Definitely agree. I did just want to add something, because we probably should wrap up soon. We've probably been talking for a while. That, oh my god, I lost my train of thought. Of course I did.
Religion.
Um,
Good and
I should have wrote it down. I thought about writing it down and then I didn't. Religion. Religion. Good, bad, evil.
well, guys, if you
Oh,
oh, okay.
um, oh, okay, I remember. So I just wanted to touch on, there has been bad things from religion, obviously. Wars, murders, deaths. misinformation, lack of information, whatever, decisions, poor decisions, whatever. Um, I do think it's done good to unite, whatever. Um, but I think nowadays it is limiting in the sense as if you fully believe it and you're an extremist, even if you're not totally extreme, but there's certain things that you just think are completely immoral according to your religion, such as just to briefly touch on it, because I'm sure we'll touch on it at some other point in a different episode. Sex ed, um, are severely lacking in schools. There's a lack of sex education, and that is in large part because religious people fought very hard to not have that, to teach abstinence or to not teach it at all, because they don't want to promote children having sex. But I do think we need better sex education and not just here's how you have safe sex, put a condom on, you're good to go, or don't have sex at all, it's bad. Because I don't think sex is a bad thing. I just think we should take responsibility, same as with drugs, like I talked about, just responsibility, responsibility, responsibility. And that goes into me talking about how I think we should just raise our children to be good and not for the sake of a religion. You're limiting people's information and you're limiting good information that could prevent things, could prevent, you know, irresponsibility of sex and using it poorly and not, you know. Um, so I do think it's limiting us in the sense of being responsible for things. If you just say something's immoral and then you just fight it that it's goes against religion, you're gonna lose out on so much. You are gonna severely lack in knowledge for a lot of things. Like there have been so many books fought to not be taught in schools because of religious reasons. And it's sad, and I just really think, yeah, we should have a replacement. I think we should just teach morals for moral sake, not for the big guy up in the sky. um, but it also goes into you people teaching their kids religion and preaching it while they're growing up. You are also just teaching control. You're teaching people to be controlled and believe what their elders tell them and don't think for yourself. This guy's right. What we believe is right. And you can't believe anyone else or you're out of here. It's just, I just don't like where our society is right now, religiously and spiritually. I think we're getting closer to being further away from religion, but I don't think we're anywhere near where we need to be, in my eyes, for a good society, for a good, responsible society. It's kind of the last thing I wanted to say. So if you're good, I'm good.
You said we should teach morals.
Mhm.
We have now entered the political atmosphere of where religion touches politics,
Mhm.
and we cannot continue on that road
No.
today. But as far as morals are concerned,
Mhm.
who's to say everyone thinks differently? So someone's morals and someone else's morals. but we can't touch on that.
No,
right
no,
now.
no, 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 no.
No, I know what you're saying. We should teach morals and good morals. But whose good morals are there? That is a political discussion. But we
I
can't.
really don't think it is.
I can make it one, so we
No,
probably
you can
shouldn't
make
get into
you can
that
make
territory.
you can make anything a political discussion. I was just meaning morals as in being inherently good.
Again, everyone has different definitions.
Because, well, no. As in, there was a time where it's well known. They're called latchkey kids. They were the kids that. There's that time of parents didn't keep track of their kids. They let their kids go out. They thought the world was good. And that was also during a time when there was a lot of murders. There were serial killers. There were not a lot of good. But parents just said, go out, be back. We're going to leave you home alone and you're only 8. You'll be fine. Raise yourself, basically. And I think that really set us back because I think that also raised a bunch of people who also think other people should raise themselves. And in a sense, yeah, once you get to a certain age, you're gonna have to raise yourself. You're gonna have to think for yourself.
This is
You're gonna have
political.
to. This isn't political.
I can connect it so easily.
You can.
I know.
Connect it all
It's
you
just I
want.
think that these
that's
topics
fine.
are just. It's impossible for me not to respond to them. That will end up having
That's fine.
2
I
more
was just
hours
saying.
of conversation.
I was just trying to say, morally, as in generally good, not based off of religion or anything. Just not harming others. And actively teaching that, not just letting people figure it out.
Well, we obviously need a part 2. So I'm gonna, for me on my side of things, I'm gonna stop right there because
that's fine.
I can take what you just said and go to
That's
another
fine.
universe with it.
So we'll be back for another one. I brought it in. I guess I can take it out. This has been Everything in Between with me, Journey, him, Michael. We're just engaged couple talking about stuff. Talking about life, death, and everything in between. So thanks for listening, guys. If you made it this far, hopefully come back for another.
All right, guys. I'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.